Oh, I'm sorry. You caught me in the middle of grading papers, but, I could use a break. Let's get this crap out of here. Alright, I'll worry about you later. Welcome to another episode of The Gaming Historian, with me, your host, The Gaming Historian. Of the many failed systems out there, the Dreamcast is probably the most celebrated today. It, to this day, has a dedicated fan base with members so hardcore, one of them most certainly just yelled at the screen because I dared call the Dreamcast a failure. Sorry. It may have only been around for a few years and left as quickly as it came, but it was long enough to leave a lasting impression. Released on 9/9/99, it had one of the strongest and most successful launches in history. Sonic Adventures 1 and 2 are often considered to be the only good 3D Sonic games. Soul Calibur was the first game to show that home consoles had surpassed the arcade, and is still considered one of the greatest fighting games of all time. Speaking of fighting games, the Dreamcast is the main reason why most of us play Street Fighter 3 Third Strike or Marvel vs. Capcom 2 in the first place. The Dreamcast was also the first system to successfully implement online play with games like Phantasy Star Online, Choo Choo Rocket, and Daytona USA. But without question, the cult classic of the Sega Dreamcast is Yu Suzuki's ambitious masterpiece, Shenmue. Released in November of 2000, it pushed the boundaries of graphics, presentation, and interactivity in video games. It is one of the finest pieces of software released on the system, if not the system's single greatest game. But its ingenuity and ambition came at a price. Plagued with an astronomical budget and having the rotten luck of being expected to save a failing system, the making of Shenmue is almost as remarkable as the game itself. Almost as remarkable. Thank God I'm the gaming historian. It would be such a monumental task to both review this game and talk about its history. Who's got time for that? So, with all this in mind, let's dive into the story behind one of the most immersive and ambitious games ever made, Shenmue. The history of Shenmue starts with the game's creator, Yu Suzuki, the brain behind many of Sega's hit arcade staples like Hang On, Afterburner, Virtua Racer, Virtua Cop, and one of the most successful series of all time, Virtua Fighter. It's easy to see why Yu Suzuki is commonly referred to as Sega's Shigeru Miyamoto. If it was a successful arcade game for Sega, chances are Mr. Suzuki had a hand in it. As a student, Mr. Suzuki played a lot of immersive and text-based RPG and adventure games on the Macintosh, most likely the Apple II. He said he had had an interest in evolving that kind of RPG, but into something, quote, my RPG, but I might as well not call it an RPG. He liked the idea of the RPG, but wanted something less restrictive. This led him to create the idea of free, or fully reactive eyes entertainment. As Mr. Suzuki puts it, a fully reactive game with very sensitive eyes. Can you believe that? Talk about ambition. Mr. Suzuki made his own damn genre for Shenmue. He set forth making one of the most ambitious and expensive games of all time. Nearly everything in the game could be looked at and inspected. Every character, no matter how mundane, had a speaking voice and could be approached and spoken to. This was achieved with realistic mouth movements and lip syncing for each of these characters, which was a huge step up from games like Metal Gear Solid. This meant the massive script was translated and re-recorded in English. Whole towns were constructed, filled with shops, restaurants, arcade machines, and people. People came and went, and shops opened and closed as each day progressed. The setting was in the 1980s, specifically November 86 to April 87, meaning you not only had a limited number of days to finish the game, everything right down to the behavior and clothing style of our hero was modeled after a mid-1980s Japan, allowing a level of cultural immersion never before seen in gaming. Minus the Sega Saturn in the living room. There simply was not enough hours in the day to see everything Shenmue had to offer. A random weather simulator would shift from rain, snow, overcast, and sunny skies randomly for every game. Fighting sequences featured QuickTime events, or QTEs, so that complicated, high-energy action sequences could be experienced seamlessly without directly controlling our hero. This was about 5 full years before God of War and Resident Evil 4. Other action sequences were similar to Virtua Fighter, but featured you fighting multiple opponents at once. And this was all done in real time, meaning no pre-rendered CG sequences like in Final Fantasy or Resident Evil. This allowed Mr. Suzuki to approach the game as if it were a movie, with stylish camera techniques and a fully orchestrated musical score. So successful was this cinematic approach, the game's cutscenes were strung together to make a feature-length movie released on DVD with the sequel. To make the game appealing to a broader audience, Mr. Suzuki produced a story that emphasized the importance of keeping friends, family, and loved ones close, and the ideas of courage and pride.
They killed my father, right in front of me. I will have my revenge.
This story had a sprawling 16 chapters to it, with the first game just serving as the first chapter. But it was quite a journey to see this vision fully realized.